أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وصلى الله على النبي الأمي. Today inshallah we'll do something very special. That is, we will go through the portion of Al-hikam that we have gone through already and go through it in a very brief manner. So I'm hoping it's going to be very beneficial. And I have my iPad here with me, and I was able to download a PDF of the Al-hikam, and it's a really good English translation. So inshallah we will cover a whole lot of the earlier durus in a very brief manner, so we'll be able to go through a lot. The only clause that I would put there is whatever was covered in the longer durus, the ones that we have done in the past. A lot more detail was given on every one of these topics, so you're not going to be getting those benefits, but you'll get the summary of the individual durus or the individual sayings of Ibn Ata'ullah Eskandari, Rahmatullahi عليه. So let's start inshallah. Bismillah. The first saying of his is with regards to good deeds. One of the signs of relying on one's own deeds is the loss of hope when a downfall occurs. So he's hinting to the fact that we should not over-rely on our actions and leave our journey, our spiritual journey, to the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when one over-relies on his actions, then when his actions fall apart, then he thinks his spiritual life has fallen apart and he will not be able to make it to Jannah, and so on and on. So the person further lets his life fall apart. So it's very detrimental. Number 2, your desire for isolation, even though God has put you in the world to gain a living, is a hidden passion. Here he's speaking about the two types of lives that saints live. One is that type of a saint who lives a very normal life where he's completely engrossed outwardly with the world, but he's continuing his spiritual journey and he is on track with regards to his spiritual life. And then there's those who have fully let go of dunya, so you don't see them as functional parts of the society. They live in a spiritual or a very desolate type of a life where they don't they don't look like they have partaken of the world. They might dress in a certain way, very old clothing, and their homes will be more of extremely simple nature. So all that. So the author is saying that depending on where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put you, don't opt for the other lifestyle. So if Allah has put you in a situation where you have to continue functioning as if you are not in a deep spiritual state, and you have to do the very mundane things of paying bills, paying taxes, shoveling your snow, and so on, and taking your kids to school and bring them back, washing dishes, cleaning the toilets, if all that stuff is what's your destiny, then continue with that, because that is your life, spiritual life, and continue with your spiritual journey. And likewise for the others, and your desire to gain a living in the world, even though God has put you in isolation, is a come down from lofty aspirations. And the opposite, if Allah has put somebody in a situation where he doesn't need to indulge in the world and he can live a more simple life, then for him to leave that and say, no, I want to live the other type of a saintly life, then both of those are unnecessary. Let destiny decide, let the Lord decide which state you live in. The third saying is antecedent intentions cannot pierce the walls of predestined decree. So having wild imaginations even in the spiritual sense, cannot change destiny. You're still going to be within the bounds of whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about you and what you're going to be achieving. So for you to think that you're going to overachieve, then that would be not to your benefit. The next one, number 4, rest yourself from self-direction. This is so beautiful, man. So like calming and easing to the mind. For what someone else has carried out on your behalf, you must not yourself undertake to do it. So he's hinting towards our income and livelihood. That rest yourself from self-direction. Do not constantly second guess your ideas, your life. Have some level of conviction, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined our sustenance. So for you to constantly think about how I can earn more money and so on is just unnecessary. One second. Bismillah. So in the next saying, the author hints and speaks about what should a person be making dua for and what should a person not indulge and focus on throughout their duas and endeavors. So he hints that our du'as and our ambitions should be with regards to our spiritual growth and not our rizq, our sustenance. So he says you're striving for what has already been guaranteed to you, and your remissness in what is demanded of you are signs of the blurring of your intellect. The next saying, if in spite of intense supplication there is delay in the timing of the gift, let that not be the cause of your despairing. This is a really important one, very, very important. Although maybe all of us, we have full conviction in the lordship of our Lord, but when it comes to du'as, we become so shaky that I don't know what's happening with my du'as. Are they ever going to be heard? We have this emotional, spiritual despair with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if somebody, I remember when I read this, when we started our durus, and I was making a very serious dua, but once this hit me, I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I know the dua will be accepted, and I'm not going to bother with it anymore because I have so much trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I feel like my Lord has given me enough signs that He has accepted my dua. Now for me to just whine and cry, pretending as if Allah never heard me, and not focus on the worships that I'm supposed to be focusing on, then that is a waste of time. Like for example, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he dropped off his kids and his kid and his wife in Mecca, but then he moved on with his worship, which was to give da'wah to mankind. He didn't just sit at a distance from Mecca and just make dua for the safety of his children forever. He moved on in doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted him to do. So that's where extreme tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is needed. And for some reason we do not think about tawakkul enough. Tawakkul should be a daily thought of a believer and in how much they trust their Lord. For He has guaranteed you a response in what He chooses for you, not in what you choose for yourself, and at the time He desires, not the time you desire. So although we think this was the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to come through for me and give me this, or make this happen, but He didn't. So that's fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't see that time for your dua's acceptance. He wants another time for that dua's acceptance. The next one, number 7, if what was promised does not occur, even though the time of its occurrence has been fixed, then that must not make you doubt the promise. Otherwise, your intellect will be obscured and the light of your innermost heart extinguished. So let's not judge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on the timings of when He decides to accept a prayer. He can decide, He can choose, He definitely can choose when He wants to accept the dua, and me and you do not get to decide when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts a dua and He makes something come through. So the dua can be accepted, but the outcome will come later. If He opens, the next one is very beautiful. It's about our spiritual journeys and how much we are putting in, how many hours we're putting in. He says, don't worry about how many hours you're putting into your spiritual journey. If you feel like the Lord is communicating and sending you the right inspirations and you feel like you are on good terms with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stop turning towards your actions as if they were the keys to your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are outward causes, but the real thing is the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's read it. If He opens the door for you, thereby making Himself known, pay no heed if your deeds do not measure up to this. For in truth, He has not opened it for you, but out of a desire to make Himself known to you. Do you not know that He is the one who presented the knowledge of Himself to you? So now He explains how our actions and His wanting us to know do not have to be equal. Whereas you are the one who presented Him with deeds. So again, do you not know that He is the one who presented the knowledge of Himself to you, whereas you are the one who presented Him with deeds? So what a big difference. What a difference between what He brings to you and what you present to Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you ma'rifat, allows you to know Him. And what you present to Him is just humanly weak good deeds. So there's a big difference, and do not worry about what you are giving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is your broken deeds. Do not worry. Focus on the grace of the Lord. And continue to better and excel yourself in good deeds. Do not leave your good deeds, because we have a very clear hadith that says a servant continues to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through fara'is. There's nothing better than the compulsory deeds, and after that is the nawafil, the optional deeds. So optional deeds are completely a big step in our spiritual growth, but in case on a day where our spiritual actions are less and you still feel a big amount of grace, then don't be shocked, don't be surprised. Sometimes I come for Jummah prayers and I feel like I've been below average in my spiritual focus on things. But then I'll come for Jummah Salat and I feel this really nice feeling when I'm speaking to people. And it's not like showing off to somebody or not. It's just that the topic just flows. The topic that we hope to share with people, it just flows, and everybody has a very a focused look on their face, and everybody's into it. And at that moment, I realized, yeah, it's the grace of the Lord that's making this topic so easily digestible to everyone. Although I did not do any special homework to be spiritually focused, and how everybody's so focused on the dini topic. So that's how we know what the author is explaining. That's my basic experience of it. Actions differ. Number 9, actions differ because the inspirations of the states of being differ. So I think in here, I did check it before the dars, what he's implying is that depending on the state of the soul, that is also the reason for why actions differ. So the more different the state of the inner being, the more the actions will be different. No need to be over focused on what's the state of the heart. If somebody's crying a lot in their dua, or somebody's really calm in their duas, it's just their state at that moment. Number 10, actions are lifeless forms, but the presence of an inner reality of sincerity, the sir, within them is what endows them with life-giving spirit. So all worships, they're outwardly alive, but inwardly they could be dead if there's no sincerity in it. But once the sincerity is added, it is like the soul, it's like the ruh. It brings the worship into life. So that's how, if you are if you are good with the poetry of Allama Iqbal, there's a very famous poetry where he mentions that the azan is still being given, but the Bilali spirit is missing. So the words of the azan are still the same, but the stir that Bilal used to give to people, radiallahu anhu, with his ikhlas and his sincerity for his Lord, and he would make everybody come to the masjid, then that sincerity is missing in our azans. People can be giving the most fanciest azans, but it although it stirs the hearing, but it doesn't stir the soul. The next one is very profound, is speaking about, should you try to express your religiousness first, or should you bury your religiousness first? So he says, bury your existence in the earth of obscurity, for whatever sprouts forth without having first been buried flowers imperfectly. So basically focus on yourself a lot, and in case the Lord wants to use you, He will use you, but do not advertise yourself all the time. If you think it's the right time as a believer, and you and your Lord know best when that time is, you can go out of your way to spread your whatever you know about Islam. You can spread that, completely normal. That's completely acceptable. The only thing is, it's between you and your Lord when you are ready to do that. Just like how a prophet runs around being ridiculed, made fun of, and disrespected, although he's bringing the message, then that is how a ummati can also run around sharing his deen with others, if he thinks he's at that stage. But if he's younger than that, if he's less sharpened, then he needs to take a step back and bury himself in obscurity and continue to grow. And in case somebody's thinking, why the heck are you sitting in front of a screen, dude? You're showing off. So I remember my sheikh, my mentor, he told me like maybe 3-4 years ago, he said, Abdul Jalil, you can start, like, I'm not recording his words, but he said, I can start a dars. And I would look into my heart and be like, yo, I can't. It's really bad in there. It's really, really bad in my heart. So now it's basically the same thing, but I feel like, okay, it's about time I start. So that is the reason why I'm continuing. Otherwise, it is quite a pain to sit and try to teach. The next one is, nothing benefits the heart more than a spiritual retreat. Nothing benefits the heart more than a spiritual retreat, wherein it enters the domain of meditation, maidan fikra, that was the word used in the Arabic. So enjoy your spiritual time, basically. Like, spend time on yourself. Like, for example, if somebody's a coach in the workout physical education industry, they can teach as much as they want, but they shine when they work out themselves and they show the results on their own selves. So same thing, somebody can be teaching religion, but if they don't enjoy their spiritual time with their Lord, something is terribly wrong. I think we'll pause there. May Allah give us tawfiq to benefit from whatever we hear, and may Allah make us of His chosen servants. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Today is Thursday night. Let's send some salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad, kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. I mentioned that it is Thursday just to give that extra emphasis. Otherwise, every moment is a time to send love to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على النبي الأمي.